This week's Parshas Shoftim, Imushale from Aleph Beta points out that we found ourselves in the middle of a densely packed random list of laws, which started last week's Parsha and spans about another 4 Parshas. So it starts with this idea of blessings and curses, and in one sentence it says that will be at Mount Gerizim and Ebal. Then we get 26 chapters of laws, and only then do we actually get to the story of Mount Gerizim and Ebal. So we've got these two mountain stories that bookend these 26 chapters. Are they a confusing random digression, or is it an incredibly deep link with a common thread that connects everything? So stop for a minute and think about this. What are these laws? What's the bigger picture? These are the laws that Moshe has chosen to share with the Jewish people in the last speech before he dies. This is the essence of what will lead them to blessing or curse. I mean, it's heavy-duty stuff. It's laden with significance. So wouldn't you expect to find something more meaningful here, like more meaty? What about the 10 Commandments? These are the 10 things chosen by Hashem to give us at Mount Sinai. I mean, they seem pretty important, but what do we get instead? We get kashrut laws, remission of loans, wayward cities. These are just a few examples. This week's parasha, laws to establish a justice system, courts, judges, laws of legal testimony, not to move boundary markers, cities of refuge. It's just super jam-packed. So if it seems quite random and not the most important laws, what's going on here? Let's start by looking closer at each one and see if we can find the link. Don't move the boundary marker of your neighbor. What's this? I have land. I move my marker and say, my land starts here. I have more land. Land theft is stealing. Do not steal. One witness can't testify alone. If a witness was lying, he's punished with whatever judgment he wanted for his fellow. This is bearing false witness. You seeing the pattern yet? Cities of refuge for a murderer, rotzeach. He's not called a killer, he's called a murderer. Lo tirtzach, do not murder. It says an idol worshipper must be put to death. Okay, this one's a dead giveaway. It's idol worship, right? So we see something very, very cool here. Is it possible that these densely packed laws are actually just different expressions of the 10 Commandments? So why doesn't Moshe just cut to the chase? If you do these things, you'll be blessed. If you don't do these things, you'll be cursed. See 10 Commandments for reference. But here we've got a much, much longer list, which seems to be different or even have a contradictory message at times. What I mean, look at one of the examples, city of refuge. Yes, it's talking about a murderer, but the 10 Commandments say don't murder. And here it says, make these cities of refuge where a murderer can run away so they don't get punished. So what if the big commandment is teaching us a principle? Do not murder. And this law now gives that principle a little bit of nuance. So there are different types of murder. They're not all treated the same. Not all murderers are allowed to go to a city of refuge. Only an accidental murderer can. The example that's given is of a wood chopping accident. So the blade slips off the handle. He didn't mean to murder his friend, but the text still calls him a murderer. He's not punished with death, but with exile. He was negligent, so he's liable, even though he never intentionally murdered. We're deeply sensitive to human life. This is expressed as death to intentional murderers who took life, exile to accidental murderers, and trying to preserve life wherever we can. See, it even has expression in our building codes. Next week, Parsha, we get a law to build a fence around a roof so nobody falls off. This is a building regulation, but it's also an expression of don't murder. If you don't build your house properly, you can kill someone. So these laws, they show us how the larger principles of the 10 Commandments can express themselves in everyday life. Think about it. How many times do you have the opportunity to not murder in everyday life? If you can embody this principle in how you build your house, how you drive, and being cautious when chopping wood, then you really have an opportunity to integrate. So let's look at just a few more examples to close off. Honesty in court. 2 witnesses, punishment for false testimony. This is don't bear false witness. Next week, we've got sexual prohibitions. Don't betray sacred relationships. This is adultery. Then there's the wayward son, sending away the mother bird. These laws are all about respecting the relationship between parent and child. That's the commandments to honor your father and mother. Returning lost objects. This is about theft. The lesson is, Don't just avoid stealing. Go out of your way to return a lost object. And that's the beautiful thing. The day-to-day 613 commandments, they help us understand and experience these underlying values that define us as a people. They show us the original 10 commandments. They're not just rules to follow. They're foundational principles. They're 10 overarching values that express themselves in just so many different ways. And they fill our daily activities with spiritual significance and meaning. If we stray from these values, if we lose empathy and justice, of course we'd be cursed. Because it's through our morality and through the values that we have that we can build a society that is truly a blessing.